Ready? Okay, so as mentioned earlier, this is going to be a relaxed conversation. And we're doing away with PowerPoints, but mainly picking the brains of our panelists. Okay, so I guess the first question would be, why are you in your respective disciplines? What led you to, for example, psychology, linguistics, history, and governance? And I guess we'll take off from there. Who wish to start the ball rolling? Ayan, ituturuan na po sila. Alphabetical. Okay.
That's the youngest person.
Okay, the youngest.
Alphabetically. Good afternoon to everyone. Bakit nga ba ako nasa social sciences? I was a science teacher by choice, but became an English teacher by force. That time, when I was teaching in school in Bulacan, and when I decided to pursue my master's degree, sabi ng principal that time, saan ako nagtatrabaho, mag-English teacher ka lang, medyo magaling ka naman mag-English, and English teachers at that time, that school were endangered species. So sabi ko, sige, I had no choice, sige na, sundin ko na, and so I took a detour from science to English, and then when I went to UST, I studied English language studies na rin for my PhD. And the rest is history. So now I've forgotten everything about science, and thus I need to apply linguistics at the moment. Thank you. Sorry, kayo na po susunod.
Actually, for a very long time, I was not sure if I was in the social sciences. Psychology, as all Edna will agree, I think some part of the work we do in psychology is not squarely within the social science approach. So even when I was chair of the PSSC, I felt it was anomalous that a fake social scientist is chair of the Social Science Council. But I was trained as a psychologist. And at that time, and even now, psychology is usually in the colleges of social science. But I guess I stumbled into it. In the Philippines, I don't think people really aspire to be social. I don't think any parents will say, anak, mag-social scientist ka. Hindi ganon. So eventually, in university, you kind of discover that there are certain ways of thinking and problem solving that you respond to, and that happens to be social science. And over the years, kind of sit more comfortably into the more social science approaches to thinking about the world and our problems.
Okay. On my part, I had a very good history teacher in high school. And that really sparked my interest. He was my teacher in world history. So when I decided to go to college, my mother, because I was a good dancer, she wanted me to become a PE teacher. I said, okay, I'm good in dancing, but I'm not interested in pursuing a career in dancing. So I enrolled in the College of Education at UP. There was a BSE degree major in history. Nowadays, it no longer exists. So I pursued a BSE in history because of that teacher. And I was very fortunate to pursue really a degree in history. My master's was, and my PhD degrees were obtained in France because at that time, the French embassy in Manila was very, very generous with scholarships to France. And for history, we were given 2 slots. One was to study in the University of Paris, and the other slot was to study in the University of Aix-en-Provence. So I said, I think I'd like to be in Paris. So I was given that opportunity. I was a French government scholar. And of course, in UP, when you are given a scholarship, you have to do intern service. And so my whole teaching career has been tied with the university and no regrets whatsoever.
Well, actually, just like my colleagues here in front of you, I've traveled miles before I realized that I have to land, and I did land in the field of public administration and governance, but I went through anthropology. I'm easy about it. I have also moved into my public administration. I think a faculty member of the College of Public Administration then at the University of the Philippines inspired me. The late Dr. Ledy Carino, university professor, who told me I have to pursue my graduate studies further until she helped me move. And she actually was one of those who recruited me to become faculty of the National College of Public Administration, having come from a long experience working with civil society groups prior to my entry into the academic profession. And so I continue to be inspired by working with public administration, in public administration. Maybe this is ironic for you because many of you might not be too happy about performance of people in public service, but I find it really challenging that Scholar ng Bayan should be working towards and helping move this country and our society by working seriously with people who hold power, positions, and responsibilities that will have to change the country and the world. So through time, I begin to like and love the profession of assisting and helping people who work in public service. And here I am now until I was chosen as Dean of the College of Public Administration and Governance at some point. And probably at this point, I continue to be active in the social science circle with Dr. Odette Portus throwing me into the hot waters of being a representative of the Philippines in the Asian Association of Social Sciences and Research. And it's interesting how one gets more and more into social science concerns. And I must confess that I do assist and help capacitate our legislators, particularly in the House of Representatives. When I started crafting a training program for members of the House of Representatives. And I think the institution, my college, continues to do this. Shaping change, shaping society to move forward, I hope is a function of public administration and public service. So I've learned to love this field of study. I am challenged by it. We're not all happy about it, but I do challenge myself and my colleagues because we serve quite a lot of people when we are in the field of public service. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. So it's nice to hear that there are various inspirations, whether you're forced to do it or you found the love for the discipline you are into. And many of our audience here are young people, still studying, still exploring the world. And I think one of the things that, I don't know for our youth today, pero if you see someone that you are just reading before, di ba merong sense na parang, oh, this is my reading, and now he's here, they are here talking, no? Did you ever had that kind of experience of meeting an influential social scientist that also influence your, let's say, your research direction or positively or negatively, I don't know. No, pero meron bang ganon? And do you have stories to share with us? No, yung mga nakilala nyo ng mga social scientists.
Ang daya ng mga kasama ko dito. Well, one role model of mine was Encarnacion Alsona. You know, who is Encarnacion Alsona? She's acknowledged as the first woman who finished a PhD in history. And when I arrived from my studies, I was a bit intrigued by her. She was still alive at the time. And I wanted to do a biography of her because her dissertation was something on the French. So I had some affinity. She was single. And I found her a very active woman in terms of her being the translator of many of Rizal's works. During the centennial of Jose Rizal, she translated a lot of works of Jose Rizal, so I considered her a Rizalist. I also considered her as a feminist. She was in the forefront of women getting the right to vote. And of course, she was an historian. So on those three counts, I said, I'd like to meet her and I'd like to do a biography of her. And so at that time, she was already a recluse. She didn't want to meet people already. And so I said, what would be the best way to meet her? And I discovered that the mother of Dr. Serafin Quezon, who was the director at one time of the National Library, and the Encarnacion Alsona were friends, were very good friends. So I asked a letter of introduction from Dr. Quezon. I said, Sir, who was also my teacher and colleague in the Department of History, I'd like to meet Dr. Alsona. And he willingly gave me a letter of introduction. And so with that letter of introduction, I went to her house. It's located along Taft Avenue, very close to the present station of Taft and the Taft Avenue station. No? So I knocked at her door and she received me. She was living alone with a house help, and so she received me, and you feel transported in another era and period because she received me in a balot saya. So her place is very nice. She was very proud to say, I built this house, I fixed it, etc. And then I told her, Mom, I want to write your biography. And then she told me, I'm still alive. I don't want you to write my biography. I'm still alive. So she suggested, it came from her, why don't you put together all my writings and do an anthology of it? So I said, okay, Mom, I'll do it. And she was very, very cooperative. She opened her library, and I was able to put together her speeches, writings, translations together. So, I would visit her every Saturday afternoon. And she would serve me very traditional merienda, like minatamis na kundol at saka tubig. Yung bang ganun, talagang transported ako into another world. And she, at one point, she said, and I'm sad, I'm depressed. Sabi ko, why, Mom? I have no more friends. Because she was already close to 100 at the time. She was national scientist already. So the last news I got was that she was confined in the hospital because she fell in the stairs of the house. And as a national scientist, I think her privilege was to be confined, free of charge, in the Manila Medical Center at the time. So I visited her, and she was bedridden already and unconscious. In fact, one thing that I would never forget was she was already in a fetal position at that time. So when the anthology, I was very thankful for UP. Well, of course, she served the university. She was a woman regent. She was a member of the Board of Regents of UP at one time, and also taught in the Department of History. When the book was launched by the Office of Research Coordination of UP, she was no longer present. So it was the family that graced the occasion of the launching. But when she was still alive, the Department of History of UP honored her. So she arrived in a program honoring her, but she was already wheelchair bound. So in short, she was really my idol because she spent her life in the discipline of history. When you read her works, which are really pioneering works, like, for example, the History of Education in the Philippines, you see the discipline of history because she will put a period delimitation. That's usually part of history. Always circumscribe the period that you are writing about. That's very, very important. So she did that, and you see the discipline of history there when she documents how the women fought to be given the right to vote. So I think for her, she really deserved being national scientist, being honored as the first woman who finished a PhD in history. So she's my idol, in short.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. When I was young, because I wanted to be a science teacher, I looked up to Ernie Barol. Hindi ko alam kung kilala pa ng mga estudyante dito si Ernie, But because I took a different route, I met towering figures in my readings. For example, Dr. Lourdes Tish Bautista and Brother Andrew Gonzalez, who's a towering figure in our field. He's descriptive, applied, theoretical, and social linguist rolled into one. And his works have impacted language and education policies in the multilingual Philippines. But fortunately, I also was able to meet the one seated right next to me, Professor Allan Bernardo, who's also a towering figure in the field of social sciences. We also studied him when he published works in linguistics, although now he's more into psychology. So these are the people we look up to. But the next generation would be Isabel Martin from Ateneo de Manila University, and then we have Tuting Hernandez from the University of the Philippines, and then from University of Santo Tomas. I won't brag, but I'll just mention their names later. But these are some of the people I look up to who also serve as my role model and inspiration. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Andrew. My answer is going to be a bit different because my pathway is also different from most Philippine social scientists. I started my graduate training in psychology. I was 21 years old. So I trained at Yale University, and so in other words, my shaping as a scholar was really not by Filipino scholars. So, because I did my PhD at Yale University, the leaders of the field were there, not just psychology, but also the social sciences. So, in a way, because I did my PhD there was a direct shaping of the kind of scholarship in my field, which may be very irrelevant to the Philippines when I arrive. No? And that's something that I was very cognizant of. No? So my intellectual influences were in the mainstream of international psychology and social science. But in a way, my work has been influenced by them in terms of the discipline and the rigor and the expectations, which I think doesn't really have any nationality if you think about it. No? But over the years, I do realize that because I was trained abroad, my values and my habits are somewhat different from a lot of my colleagues. No? But that's not something that I think was a problem. I do think that just own that, so to speak. No? And over the years, because I keep engaging the international social science community, you do meet a lot of these people. No? And what you have to realize though is, yeah, they're also people. No? And although they have great ideas, some are good teachers, some are bad, some are horrible people, some are nice. No? Tao din sila. No? And so you just learn from these people what you think will really shape you as a scholar. Coming back to the Philippines, again, this is part of how my pathway is different because I got my PhD I was 25 years old. That's too young in the Philippine context. No? So I still had to do a lot in terms of kind of figuring out what does it mean to be a social scientist in the Philippine context. And there, I feel like the influences were my elders who were building institutions. No? So in my field, early on I worked with, are there any psychology majors here? Wala, no? Oh, there are some. No? So a national scientist, Alfredo Lagmay, Dr. Bernillo Enriquez, these were senior people who were building the institutions. But also in PSSC, that's one thing I appreciated because that's where I encountered our founding mothers like Helia Castillo, National Scientist Ditas Concepcion, Lady Carino was mentioned, and Tati Licuanan from the Ateneo. So there were, Brother Andrew Gonzalez was, so there were, I saw what it meant for people who were also trained abroad to come back and try to build the discipline. So I realized that that's something that I should also get into, no? And that's why I spent so many years in the executive board of PSSC. And that's all part of what being a social scientist also is. You help build the community. So it's not just the intellectual work of social science, it's also building community.
In my case, let me tweak a little bit my response to the question. I'd like to base it on, first on people who probably were instrumental and inspirational as far as my experiences in shaping the kind of love for the academic profession, for teaching the social sciences. In the, late 90s, early 2000, I was part of, I was a junior team member. I was part of a team that CHED commissioned to evaluate schools all over the country. And I was so fortunate that the team leader in the team where I belonged to was the late brother Andrew Gonzalez. I thought after having traveled, we evaluated around 400 schools, private and public, all over the country, from Luzon to Mindanao, and that was my biggest exposure to the educational institutions, the variety and the discrepancies, the differences between public school and private school. And I thought, at the end of the one-year project funded by the FAPE, the Fund for Assistance to Private Education, I thought I obtained another PhD on education And it was the exposure to the different schools all over the country. 400 public, private. Unfortunately, despite the very frank, very honest evaluation of all the schools that we visited, that we went to, it was done by the Commission on Higher Education, by CHED. We don't know what happened to that. Our recommendations were very straightforward, strong, and we had no interest except to upgrade educational system in the Philippines. And you will see the discrepancy really between schools which are in the mountain areas and in the private schools, no? So, I thought, as I said, while traveling alone and eating so much with Brother Andrew Gonzalez all the time, peace be to him, really taught quite a lot of things that you would not learn from the universities. And I cannot forget it, that really sticks to me until now. But the other side of it is, in my field of interest, public administration, I probably will disagree with some of our countrymen in saying that some of the big lessons I learned are from politicians, from the practitioners in the field who have seen how poor, rich, middle-class people live and why they behave and think the way they do. Let me give you an example. The former mayor of this city, the movie actor, formerly a movie actor and former mayor of Manila, was a trainee in one of the training programs that we conducted in UP, in NCPAG. He was a counselor at that time. Never spoke any word of English. No matter how much you speak in English, he will reply and respond in Filipino, very honestly. And he would say, conversation, no? Yung tinuturo niyo po na matuto mula sa komunidad, sa community, mali po ba yung makita ko na ang mga tao at makita ko na naglalaro ako ng Tom Eats kasama ng mga tao? Mali po ba yun? Kasi nakita ko doon kung paano yung maliliit nating kababayan ay kung bakit sila engaged dito sa ganitong activities at kung paano rin nila pinipilit iangat yung kanilang buhay. And I said, my God, that's a very social science issue. This guy who never spoke in English, I'm not complaining for him, by the way. I'm telling a tale where we trained him when he was a counselor. And similarly, as I watch Quadcom deliberations on television now, I'm so proud. Some of this, the current chair of the Quadcom, Ace Barbers, was my student. And he was absolutely, it was his brilliant idea to put different committees of Congress together and scrutinize probably the hardest questions being raised to a very complicated person and politician. And I thought, as I watch it, I feel so proud that having worked and having, now I'm learning from them. It's not Ace Barbers, who was my former student, not learning from me anymore, but in the stream of the political life, I have to recognize people who we tend to look down, to belittle, are actually showing their sense of brilliance, their moments of intelligence, when they throw the questions, when they lead committees which are not an easy job. And to me, this is a mentoring type for me, that we learn from those who we taught before. And other people who continue to be an inspiration despite the former Senator Antonio Trillanes was also our student. And you can never question the kind of sincerity, the honesty, and the bravery is something that no one will ever want to have, and because because one will be afraid to get to jail or to be condemned by some people. But I have such respect when it comes to issues of corruption. Absolutely no corruption. I worked with him when I was dean and when he was president of the Alumni Association of my college. And true enough, I've seen the sincerity of this person, but so difficult to be loved by so many of our countrymen. In other words, I learned many things from people who learn from us in a different way and appreciate the virtues that they have. I think being an educator, we cannot just be sending the messages all the time. We also learn from those who learn from us. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the messages of the 4 responses, while they vary, is on point. Of course, we were mentored at one point in our lives, but at the same time, we learn not just from our mentors, but also from our colleagues, from those who came before us and after us. Because after all, as social scientists, we recognize that knowledge is evolving. Okay, and I guess that's a very good message to send to our younger audience here today. But speaking of evolution, and Sir Allan already mentioned in passing PSSC in his response earlier. In your experience in the social sciences, in your respective disciplines, how much has changed? And since this is also a platform to celebrate the PSSC's 55th anniversary, how do you see the PSSC's role in that evolution of your discipline? Okay, I hope that's not a difficult question, kasi evolution yung tinatanong natin. But probably the changes that happen in your discipline, well, based on your experience in your respective fields. Yeah.
In the field of linguistics, particularly applied linguistics, we've seen a lot of changes happening. The evolution that linguistics has been undergoing has resulted in addressing more and more pressing national issues in the multilingual Philippines. Linguistics is now marrying other disciplines. We borrow and we draw inspiration from other disciplinary areas such as psychology, sociology, even religion. In other words, linguistics has become some sort of a crossroad where different disciplines converge or different disciplines meet. We've also seen a lot of shifts from colonial frameworks to Philippine-centered perspectives. For example, in Philippine linguistics, there's now much focus given to or allotted for indigenous languages, the development of Filipino as a national language, the mother tongue-based multilingual education. Although I know that the FTB-LLE is now a hot issue, it has been abrogated and it's held in abeyance for some reason. In my field, which is World English, there's a varieties of English, particularly Philippine English. We've seen how Philippine English has become an object and subject of a lot of empirical investigations in the country and even outside the country. In fact, Philippine English is regarded to be the most extensively studied variety of English in Southeast Asia. And there are also budding disciplines in Philippine linguistics. For example, there's now forensic and legal linguistics in the Philippines. It's a fertile area for social science enthusiasts out there. So the journalism students here might want to venture into that and doing forensic and legal linguistics as well. The English majors who are here, the psychology majors who are here might also want to consider that as a path. And there's also migration linguistics, and migration linguistics look into how migration impacts language and vice versa, how language impacts migration. And of course, my field, which is Philippine English Studies. Researching to Philippine English has emphasized the legitimacy of Philippine English as a variety of English which we should not be afraid of. So these are just some of the developments or changes happening, particularly in the field of linguistics in the Philippines.
I'm not going to speak about psychology, and maybe because I was engaged in PSSC for many, many years, maybe I'll kind of make observations about Philippine social science. When I think I was chair of the board, I think 2004 or something like that, 2008. And at that time, what we observed is that there are different social science disciplines, and they were at very different levels of crystallization. No? So some social sciences at that time were still struggling to have their national conference going, their journal was not coming out regularly, which I think reflects not the maturity of the discipline, but the nature of the community building. No? So I am happy to see that the organizations within PSSC are more well-formed. Not sure if the journals are coming out regularly, but there's certainly more maturity in terms of the scholarship. Some of the things, I'm just going to throw out some things out there. It used to be in the 1980s, social science was very Metro Manila centric. And even so, if I may say so, very UP and Ateneo centric. And I'm very glad that has changed a lot. Social science is much more engaging social scientists all over the country. I also see that the social sciences now are much more interdisciplinary. I think that is because we're no longer sticking our head under the sand. And once you have to face real-world problems, you will really have to work with not just other social sciences, but other professions, even natural sciences and other technical areas. I also think that, although Andrew has said that there's now move towards more decolonizing social science disciplines, I think that was already there in the 1980s. But now I feel like Filipino social scientists are more engaged with more global decolonial discourses. It's not that we were already very critical of the dominant Western paradigms even in the 1980s, 90s. But my sense was that there was a tendency then to just disengage global discourse and kind of just develop our own ways of engaging problems. But now, as with linguistics, I think in many of the disciplines, we're still doing decolonial, very indigenous, very locally contextualized approaches, but engaging the global community as well. No? I saw this when I was chair of the PSSC in 2000. That was still the time when the ASREC Secretariat was in PSSC. The PSSC was also hosting the International Fellows Program. So during that time, even PSSC was a hub. It was a center of Southeast Asia engagement, the South-South engagement, and we were starting this in the year 2000s. I'm not sure to what extent these types of more regional engagements are happening. If not in PSSC, I know that the social science communities are also more outwardly engaged. So I think those are some of the changes I see, and maybe my colleagues can pick up.
Well, I will say that history is the mother of all disciplines. we pride ourselves. But, history is now in the center of all things, in the light of historical distortion. But let me say, for us in the discipline, I will join the observation that there's a lot of decolonization also of history. And attempts to have some conversation with fellow Southeast Asian scholars. I mean, we were so separated because of colonialism and tended to be really looking west. But we have not taken a look at our neighbors, no? Southeast Asian neighbors, particularly Indonesia, Malaysia, and well, for the Philippine Historical Association, they have started a consortium, and they have tapped the historians of Malaysia and the historians of Indonesia. And so there is an attempt to communicate, to do some research, and on a bigger scale, there was before an International Association of Historians of Asia. It was like, they call it the IAHA. And the PHA was in the forefront of this. But the last venue of the IAHA was in, I think, in Bangladesh before the pandemic. But it has died. You know, it's really, it's probably problems of logistics. And but with PHA, which is a member of the PSSC, we have endeavored in this area, no, of really communicating with fellow Southeast Asian scholars. Now, in terms of the discipline, aside from a decolonization effort, there has been really a veering away from the conventional kinds of histories like political, economic, diplomatic, and more of social history. It's good because it focuses now, because those three are really elite-centered, the leaders. Now with social history emerging, you have really in the forefront the marginalized. And women's history part, because women are marginalized, gets the chance or is given space in social history. So social history is emerging, women's history is emerging, and I think very, very important now is local history. We have been, because of the agenda of history in the Philippines has been nation building, we have been focusing really on the nation, but very, very much needed now is local history. And so we're happy that the Philippine Historical Association, part of PSSC, and PNHS, the Philippine National Historical Society, are focusing on local history. So they conduct yearly conferences on local history, and you know, we are able to tap through these conferences local historians because they know more about the place. So it's a very good opportunity that PHA and PNHS are really focusing on local history. You will ask, why do you have two? Because we're very important people. Because, I mean, history, I mean, kidding aside, the PNHS was the first one. And according to stories, the head of the PNHS refuses to have an election and wanted to hold on to power. And so there was a splinter group. And that splinter group was the PHA, the Philippine Historical Association, which had Encarnacion Zona, Teodora Goncillo, you know, all the giants in history at that time.
In the case of public administration, I was having a little bit of discomfort on yung question ng public administration and the social science. No? If you look at the University of the Philippines, public administration does not belong to social science. In the cluster of the academic work course, how we develop course, how we improve, how we pass our curricula, may ibang cluster na doon po nakabilang ang public administration. It's not in the social sciences, but it is within the cluster that includes business administration, economics, urban and regional planning, the industry, no? And increasingly, even in the geography, no? So that's particularly in the university. Meron po kaming joke sa public administration. If you go by the American history of public administration, ang public administration ay anak ng political science, but then it's a product of political science. But then we say it at the university, yung political science, no offense meant, is a department, but our public administration is a college. And now it is even by law declared as the National College of Public Administration. In other words, I think there is a reason for that. Public administration has grown in leaps and bounds. We did not get stuck into the theories of politics. Ang tiningnan po, yung practicality, yung application ng politics at paano magsisilbi sa bayan. And largely, this is about administration, administrative. In that sense, public administration has become its own field of study. And it continues to evolve. Ang bilis ng evolution ng public administration. No? Actually, public administration used to be the mother of policy science, but now policy science itself and policy studies has broken the chain from being just under public administration. Kaya po makikita natin in universities abroad, such as in Singapore, they have School of Public Policy, they have policy studies as a separate degree from public administration. However, I am still proud that having public administration as my field of specialization, nakita ko kung alin yung mother discipline at kung paano nag-i-evolve at nag-change, nagbabago. And this is part of the evolution of the sciences, which we should not be sad, we should be happy about it, nag-i-evolve tayo, at may bagong kaalaman at teorya na ipinapasok ang public administration. In fact, within public administration, meron na rin pong diskurso. Thousands and thousands of articles and literatures are coming out saying, the new public administration, the new public management. Ang dami na po nito. You can go through the research and say, anong kaibahan nito? May variation depende sa country. And in our case, in public administration in the Philippines, ito yung isang napaka-crucial contributor sa pagbubuo ng tinatawag na the Eastern Regional Organization for Public Administration, or EROPA. And that particular cluster covers Middle East, the Asian countries, and so on. It has, the office of EROPA is in my college right now. But we have seen that new knowledge, new thinking, changing paradigms are evolving, no? Are being built. Hindi lang po sa practice, kung hindi kahit sa paano itinuturo ang discipline na ito. So to me, I think it's a very vibrant field of study. I'm proud of it. Sana nga lang matuto yung ating politika sa ating bansa na kailangan talaga baguhin, magbago. But on top of it, I'm going to segue into another. With the climate change and the new challenges of the 21st century, kailangan mong tumawid yung aming discipline to say, are we looking at local government? No way can we be so local. We cannot be national, pero kasi may geography na tinatawiran ngayon. Pag magmamanage tayo ng pamamahalang pambayan, kailangan natin tingnan yung geographical, yung location, because the climate has changed so much that it is changing the nature of how we will have to govern our society and even our people. So, ito yung bagong, kasama ito dun sa tinatawag namin na 21st century public administration. The climate change and the challenges of governance due to this natural phenomena. So geography is part of it, planning is part of it, lahat na lang, no? Including migration. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm from political science. But it's fine. Sabi nga nila, I mean, sa political science naman ang claim namin, we are the mother discipline. So we all have those claims.
You know, what I gather from this discussion is that things are really changing. We're so much so that a lot of the boundaries that have been defined by universities and colleges really have to be treated with a grain of salt. No? In these, that's why the action is in these big multidisciplinary centers, right? Like Dr. Ko mentioned the Singapore, the Lee Kuan Yew Institute. If you notice, the scholars in that are from all disciplines. No? So, and that, the young people here, you should be very proud of what your discipline is and the training that you're getting, but please be prepared to open and engage other disciplines, other social sciences, the natural sciences, applied professions, no? Because that is what you will be called on. And as Ma'am Edna mentioned, problems of the environment and sustainability require us to really engage people across our disciplines. So even what we train, that there's going to be a lot of humility on our part. That as we bring the knowledge of our discipline, we have to acknowledge that other disciplines have a lot to bring. So even if in the deepest of your heart you believe you're the mother discipline, don't say it out loud so that you can engage the other disciplines.
Yeah.
You know, it's a process, no, Allan? You're getting to be multidisciplinary in thought. I saw that very real when we had a research with the Center for Asia, that CASA project, no? Okay, so this was supposed to be a multidisciplinary research. We were going to study agrarian issues, but because of the explosion of Pinatubo, we shifted. No? So that the CASA project involved, the head was Sinch Bautista. There were two historians, one of them was myself. We had a sociologist, we had a psychologist, geographer, etc. So it was an experiment of some sort because I noticed that we were not yet ready. Of course, we had a disciplinary belonging there, but we were not yet ready to be open. But it was a very good occasion to be open. And then I realized, you know, in France, they seemed to be ready. They didn't have to be saying, I'm multidisciplinary. You know, there was no bragging because I realized that when they go to college, the curriculum is already multidisciplinary. So I said, oh, that's the difference. Because in the Philippines, you still have to be a major in geography, in anthropology, etc. While for them, it's human sciences. So there was no feeling of, you know, being closed and bracketed to a discipline. And then I also realized when they do research in France, the equipe or the team always will have to be multidisciplinary. So there would be a political scientist, a geographer, depending on the topic of the research. So I think we are moving towards that. From the very exclusive disciplinary base to being now open, no, to the other disciplines. So I think what we lack would be the opportunity to have a team, to have a research agenda which harnesses and mobilizes all the disciplines. no? So, but being open is already one step towards that.
May I just make a comment regarding your disciplines as mothers of all disciplines, no? Your disciplines won't work without language, hence linguistics is the father of all disciplines. But kidding aside, since we're talking about multidisciplinarity, it's important that our students here understand that your disciplines do not operate in silos. For example, journalism or IT can be both inter and multi or trans and even pan-disciplinary. So it's important that we appreciate that there is cross-fertilization of ideas now between and among disciplinary areas.
And I think going back to the first thing you mentioned earlier, Andrew, our disciplines share our perspectives, our ideas, our theories, our concepts, for example. No one has a monopoly of the concept of the state, no? Even if political science people would say that state is politics. Pero everyone can talk about that, di ba? Everyone can talk about virtues. Everyone can talk about our ideals. And I guess that's the beauty of social sciences, di ba?
Robert, if I may say, I think earlier I mentioned humility, and I think intellectual humility is important. Because when we, for example, concept of state, identity, our different disciplines may have a different attack on that concept. Now, the thing is, yung readiness, Manolo, na when we engage other disciplines, it should be respect and ako lang ang tama, no? This is the definition, no? And it's, I think, a reflection of the growth and maturity of the disciplines, where we're open that other disciplines may be engaging a particular construct in a different way, no? But let me push it even further, because the disciplines bring perspective, and that is why now, in the social science communities all over the world, it's not just disciplinal perspective that's different. It's also gender. It's also your socio-economic class. All those identities that you bring into your work and recognize that they shape even your disciplinal perspective. I was in one grant review proposal. This is an international funding agency based in the UK. It's very interesting. They even have evaluators, so we're very multidisciplinary. They wanted to make sure it was also international. They wanted to make sure there was gender balance, but also people with lived experiences on the topic, not necessarily trained academics. No? So for example, this particular panel, we were evaluating proposals on innovative approaches to solving public mental health. Part of the panel were people who lived through mental health issues. Not necessarily trained, because you do realize that academics also have their own, their blind sides, so to speak. Blindness and blind spots. So that people who actually live through these problems should be their perspective incorporated in this scientific work. No? So whatever you guys, your teachers, I'm sure are doing a very good job of training you about the theories of your discipline, but that's just the beginning. The exciting thing is when you open up, and listen to as diverse perspectives with humility, and you're going to learn a lot.
May I just, I know we're almost, no? Okay, just a quick thing, but from the side of public administration, fully agree with what has been said, but I think depending on the situation and where the challenges are strong and where the challenges lie, us in public administration, we say we have to put a balance in the way we look at how we run the course or how we manage our work with the engagement with the academic sector. For example, more and more literature has been coming out in the field of public administration that puts, a dyadic relationship between, for example, state, because that's the center of your public administration, but trying to surface and equally bring up the issue of citizenship. Citizen, to be able to put a balance between power of the state on the one hand, because that's the focus of public administration. But we also want to raise up, to level up the question of, you have the state, but where and what about citizenship? Where are the people? So public has a dual meaning there. Public is government, yes, but it is not just government. Public in public administration is about the people and the citizens, and therefore these two have to have a balance in terms of looking at the framework of the discipline and say, when we say public, are we referring to the people, the concerns of people, or are we referring to the state? Yes, both are correct, but there has to be a balance between the terminology of the word public, because otherwise one can, tilt strongly in favor of one and lose the essence of governance, which is basically the people, the citizens. Similarly, the equation of governance has come into the picture because some of our scholars do not use the word public administration anymore. It adopts governance, and it's a tripod. The governance pertains to the state as the sector that governs, and the people who are governed, and the third one is actually the industry. Therefore, it's a tri-sector. So even the words, even the ideas, the definition of terms are evolving. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's a lot of discussion so far on doing things multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary. And I think we now put PSSC at the middle. What do you think is the role of PSSC in all of this, especially now that in its 55th year? No, I do not want to give more work to Ma'am Odette and Shirley, but and the rest of the PSSC staff. No, but where do we see now PSSC coming in to this picture, right? Taking into consideration what you said about your disciplines, of course. Yeah.
I think even before PSC has already been creating those spaces for engagement, no? The Migration Research Network, for example, no? And so, as Malu was saying, it's kind of creating more of these opportunities where the disciplines are signal that, look, by engaging other disciplines, you're also growing and maturing. Of course, this kind of multidisciplinary activities need funding. But there are many of the staple activities of PSSC that you have to correct me because I'm old and I remember things from 20 years ago where the National Social Science Congress, for example, is always designed to create this interdisciplinarity. My apprehension sometimes is that every association comes and presents its paper, pero walang integration, walang weaving, walang what can I learn from political science, what can I learn from linguistics. So, pag nag-present ng paper yung PPSA, tapos uwi na siya. Di ba? Parang gano'n. So, kulang ng engagement, no? And maybe it's the maturity that you're saying, no? But I think we just have to keep doing it. And you know what? I think the best people that PSSC can engage are not those people in the universities, right? The people who are out there, Edna knows this, people in NGOs, people in governments, because it's so natural for them just to bring in people with different perspectives and make it work. They even work with engineers, computer scientists, not just the social scientists. So I think the next step, Shirley, that is PSSC should begin engaging the natural sciences, engineering sciences, information sciences, technology. Because I think we will grow in that way. They also have more money. So we can get them to fund our activities.
PSSC was born in 1968, while LSP was born in 1969. While everyone was busy landing on the moon, Brother Andrew Gonzalez, Bonifacio Sibayan were busy putting up the Linguistic Society of the Philippines. And thus, PSSC and LSP practically grew up together, advancing social science and linguistic research in the Philippines. What we're grateful for, lalo na sa PSSC, ang LSP, is that these two they were potent enough to professionalize linguistics in the Philippines at na-elevate ang Philippine linguistics not just as a unitary or a monodiscipline but an interdisciplinary area within the realm of the social sciences. So kudos to PSSC and LSP for doing that. Thank you.
I want to plug in our latest project, which we had with PSSC. This was there was a problem of getting right historical facts. And PSSC presented a proposal to Rex Publishing to come out with a compendium of sources, primary sources in Philippine history, and the compendium was prepared by experts in the area of history. So it was we called it kasaysayan. Basically, Rex was actually, they wanted it for their textbook writers, no? So that the textbook writers would have correct historical information. And so it was good enough that Rex funded this particular, imagine we had scholars like Michael Tang for anthropology, and they came up with very good primary sources. And so I think that in itself is a very big help. Imagine, not only will the textbook writers benefit from this compendium of primary sources, but even historians themselves, teachers, students, and I think Rex is willing to put it online so that the information is disseminated. So hopefully, according to the executive director, they're asking what royalties does PSSC want? Very honestly said, we don't know because this is our first experience. But I'm very happy that this project came out, and with very, very laudable objective of having right, correct, evidence-based historical facts, and primary sources. So I'd like to make proud this particular project of PSSC.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So there are a lot of initiatives, and PSSC has done it before and continues to do it again. And Sir Allan mentioned the NSSC, right? Oh, in fact, I just want to segue then. The NSSC 11 has already released its call for papers, or for proposals. Call for papers, So for those interested, you can check the PSSC website and PSSC Facebook page. But going back to our discussion, okay. As we now move to the close of our roundtable discussion, there is just this one question here, in the guide question, which puzzles me, which I hope will also puzzle you, But this only asks for your discipline in the coming years. I mean, envisioning your discipline in the coming years. But I would also like to push that question further, envisioning your discipline along with the social sciences in the coming years. So how do you see your disciplines moving toward the future? Because we talk about the past, we talk about the present, now we move to the future. Okay, well, as the title of our RTD goes, so envisioning your discipline and social sciences, in the coming years. I wouldn't want to give an exact number of years though. Yeah, anyone from our panelists?
As was think there should be more conversations among the disciplines. I don't know how this can be done by doing a common research agenda where we are able to, like for example, if an agenda on climate change, it affects everyone. Women get affected by it, students get affected by climate change. So if there can be one major agenda, research agenda, where all the disciplines can come in. I mean, because I think that's the problem which Allan articulated. There's no attempt to, weave together, we still remain in our respective disciplines, but some more conversations in terms of policy making or hard research, data gathering. I think data gathering is very, very important for us. We cannot do any policy or craft laws if there's no hard data to start with. So I think that is one way that the disciplines can come together and be harnessed to gather data on a particular theme or agenda.
Language is alive. Language continuously evolves. Now the young generation would say mid or you cooked it, you cooked the exam. Una ko narinig yun, ano ibig sabihin ng, so you cooked the exam. Sabi ko parang nagluto ba kami sa klase namin sa English? O kaya naman they would say, hey, or like something like that. So yeah, okay, so because language is alive, linguistics as a discipline should also continuously evolve, no? And I identified, siguro may pagka-Nostradamus lang, ano ba yung future, siguro yung research routes, no, ng mga, those into linguistics. For example, apart from world Englishes and varieties of English, we now have digital linguistics, we have AI and language technology, linguistic identity formation. Dr. Allan mentioned about gender, so we now have gender and linguistics, and then workplace migration, and then health communication, so forth and so on. So the bottom line is that linguistics is a promising field and will never run out of topics, no matter how mundane these topics are. Kaya kung minsan yung social sciences sinasabihan na less superior or inferior to other disciplines because sabi nila soft sciences daw tayo because we deal with anything that is mundane or ordinary, while the natural sciences will talk about not the abstract but the concrete. But I'd like to think that no matter what people say, all disciplines are created equal. No? Kahit na nagpapataasan tayo ng era dito, sabi ni Dr. Allan when he spoke to us at UST, sabi yung intellectual humility ng bawat disciplinary area. So it's not just, sir, humility that you mentioned that time, it was intellectual humility. Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
And 3 points. No? The way psychology is becoming a much more applied discipline, and I think it's true for many social sciences because we're called on to serve our country. One of the things I'm concerned about is that we still develop our science, the discipline. So, and in that area, one of the things I'd like to see is more rigor in our methodologies. No? It's so easy to do bad social science. And we see a lot of bad social science now in social media. So that's something I want to have a more positive outlook, and this is something PSSC can get into also. No? The methodologies have, and the training of young people in methodologies have to be really improved. I think part of what I also like to see is social scientists also acknowledging the new areas of being social. Social media and the social digital spaces are social. And I think our disciplines need to evolve methodologies, analytic frames, concepts, and theories to engage that. Final point, Robert, and you can stop me if I don't. I would like to see Philippine psychology and other social sciences also engaging the global community more. Publishing internationally, engaging the colleagues in the global south, but also the global north, and just holding them in their neck and say, look, this is what we have to tell you. That's the time we can be intellectually humble. No? Because we do have things to say, and we have to publish, we have to engage the global community and not just be in the margins of the discourses. Decolonization cannot end by just criticizing dominant paradigms. It will have to be, we have something to say, and you better pay attention. We cannot be too meek in that regard, and we have to claim the stage. And that's what I'd like Philippine social science to do in the coming years.
In a manner of saying it, I just want to repeat the earlier points mentioned for emphasis, that I think social science will have to move away from more generalizations. Let's be more evidence-based, data-based, while also trying to highlight what is Philippines, what is local, what is there that it is distinctly able to contribute to the universal and the global knowledge system. So in a sense, it's not speaking from a very literature-based, usually copied anyway, but really coming down to where we are at, being real and being more evidence-based. So I join the other members of the panel in emphasizing that. So we are proud to be contributing as a Philippine scholars and actors in the field of social science. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much to our panelists for their insights. And as we can see, papunta pa lang tayo sa exciting part, no? Ng social sciences, and PSSC, I guess, is being tasked, no, to be one of the leading institutions, no, for the tasks that were identified by our panelists today. Challenge, okay, it's the challenge, and they accept it. Okay, now.
Okay, so now that we have heard the insights or reflections or recollections of our speakers, let us now open the floor for questions and comments from the audience members. So for those who would like to join the discussion, you may approach the microphones along the aisles of the auditorium. But you have to briefly introduce yourself first by stating your name and institution before asking your question. And please keep your questions brief and straightforward. I think we have here Dr. Madeline Gales as the first one to ask the question.
It's not really a question. We're all educators, but I am so happy. Our students, our faculty, this is a rare privilege, indeed, for notable people to talk about the disciplines. So I'll drive this question to our students. Where are we at this point? Having heard them, where are we now? Okay, you know that we have our own priorities, of course your majors, but you know that we also have our niche, which has to do with indigenous education. Remember? They have been talking about listening to the communities, and that is what we are doing. I took my PhD in the US, LaSalle, and in Baguio. But my PhD course is obtained from the communities. I learned more from them than any other sources of knowledge. And the interdisciplinariness of what they're saying is what we are doing right now. And I think with them saying those it's confirming that we are in the right path. Towards the end of November, our MMA, environment students, sino kayo? MMA, environment students, technology students, we are going again to our community. This time in Aurora, the place where we are doing restoration of the environment. And you know that we are working not as MMA, not as technology or sciences, we are working as one because the indigenous peoples have a holistic view of knowledge and we're learning from them. We do not compartmentalize the disciplines. I think that is what we learn from them, having the experience, having gone through a lot of sharing from their own disciplines. They are bringing to us lessons that we can obtain, that we can also bring in our disciplines. You are legal management, you are MMA, but we have general education that will enhance. It will not supplant your majors because you want to become lawyers, you want to become journalists, you want to become broadcast people. We are not supplanting that, we are enhancing it with the general views of certain perspectives that are undermined because dominant society, as they are saying, is not anymore the monopoly of certain universities. We in LPU, we have been pushing the culture of humility, and that is what they were telling us. The culture of humility, that has been our slogan. I am an indigenous person. That's the reason why the passion for this has been brought to the school. And of course, Dr. Jose P. Laurel, our founder, was educated in Yale University, like you do. But what did he do? He brought to us a transformative philosophy that made us look into what is nationalism. What do we mean by a lot of things that it is in his philosophy? There is also what we call the universality of indigeneity. We brought universities from Europe, from Asia, in conversations because they heard that there is an LPU who has been making engagements where the Aita, the Agta, the Dumagat, the Batak of Palawan. We cannot include everyone, but we noticed, according to the anthropologists, that the three ethnic groups that we are responding to are members of the hunter-gatherers, and they are never been part of the discussion. So we privilege the voices of the unheard, the invisible, and those who were not listened to. They will always tell you, look at the ancestral domain, that is our pharmacy, that is our library, that is our classroom. It's holistic. They have this knowledge that we learn from. And it was not easy. I came to Imperial Manila in 2008. You know how it is. But we were able to transform the thinking that there are matters that we can actually do on our own. It's my first time to tell you these things. I do that for the faculty researchers and some students, but not in a general audience like this. Because of you, you spark the interest that this must be said. Because we are still moving towards a new knowledge that is very important. And logistics very important. The USA listened to us because we said we wanted sa language. We wanted our MMA students to do digitalization or technology, and so we have to make the voices of these people come alive in the digital world into an indigenous knowledge hub that everybody will share. The hub that will be learned from the indigenous worldviews, from our ancestors, from our marginalized people. So you know the reason why we are going into the remote areas. We are not in the centers because others can do that. Not many would think of the remote areas where they have not even seen a school. If they have to go to school, they will hike, not just for hours, but for days. And in the 15 years that we have been with them, we are proud. We brought the schools and we collaborated with the Ed and the other agencies. So they brought the teachers. And now we graduated the first grade 12 students. From grade 1, we now graduated grade 12, and 2 of them are already here enrolled in LPU, taking up environment science. So, LPU, we will collaborate with them further. I would want that to happen. I am already 70 years old. You should take over. And I'm just talking to Dr. Portus, and we will do more of these PSSC engagements. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Natalie Candes. I could recall, Dr. Mohan Datta's culture-centered approach. It's about privileging the voices from the margins. Okay, I've also been approached for another question from Sir Jean Atanasio, one of the researchers from the Research and Innovation Center of LPU Manila.
Good afternoon, doctors, Madam. Bon après-midi, Madame et Professeur, Dr. Camagay. Yes, je parle la langue française. I have a question because as a researcher, students are coming into our office, asking for data validation, document review, or basically asking for advices. And then when we run it into a system, this is the major exclamation mark. It's AI generated. So I would like to ask, what is your take on the AI and how will this affect our understanding and appreciation of the social sciences? Because sometimes, for context, I receive student papers with about 80 to 90% AI generated, and what's even worse, they keep insisting, no, it's our work, it's our work. So I asked them, who will I grade, you or the computer? So what will be our future with this AI that are now, of course, the students are probably utilizing to their advantage. At the same time, I fear that students are lacking the visual imagination of what social science is all about. Thank you.
If our academic requirements are such that AI can answer them, then those requirements need to be changed. AI is there, you cannot stop it. But it's exposing the limitations of our academic requirements. AI is a wonderful tool for social science. It can be a wonderful tool for reviewing the literature in an area where it's very new. But our academic requirements have to go beyond that, right? So in other countries, what they're doing is training teachers and students how to talk to AI so that they can generate more complex ideas and not just repeat what's there. So, and that means that actually liberates us from some of the very tedious work of social science. And instead, it should allow us to train and try to observe in students higher level ways of thinking about these problems. So that's another PSSC project, right? Hindi na kasi siya something naman tatabi natin. No? Many professional journals in the social sciences have a policy. No? So what is allowed, what is not allowed, and it's not uniform, but all acknowledge the inevitability of such technologies. I hope that we also see that it is an opportunity for to liberate us from the more tedious parts of our work, and then the liberation should be used to our advantage so that we can then concentrate our efforts the higher level, more complex types of thinking, and maybe that's where our students should be trained. We could challenge them more because then the more tedious parts can be taken care of here. Now, this is kind of a broad strokes answer. Obviously, each school will have to deal with it because it's not a matter of coming up with policies that apply to students. Faculty members have to be prepared, right? So this is a whole community kind of experience. Yeah.
The students will have to understand that there are levels of AI assistance. For example, from language editing up to content editing, up to developmental editing. And schools now will have to create some sort of a policy. So it's called AI declaration policy, where students will have to indicate how much AI was utilized in the production of, let's say, an essay or a research paper. In fact, most journals now also require AI declaration in our submissions. For example, there are journals asking us to indicate the sentence which AI itself edited, or paragraphs where contributions of AI are felt or are seen. So I think it has implication din sa policy talaga ng school o kaya classroom policies stipulated in the course syllabus, so pertinent to AI declarations. But I agree with Dr. Bernardo that AI is inescapable, nandyan yan. We just have to train our students to creatively, critically, and conscientiously use AI. And they need to understand that even if AI is there and will probably be forever there, it cannot fully capture the nuances of the human mind. So I think side by side, teaching our students to use AI is training the human mind, because foremost, AI cannot and will not be able to capture the nuances of the human faculty or the human mind. Thank you.
For history, naku, we're so conservative. For every historical assertion you make, what is your source? No? So I think for the discipline of history, the acknowledgement there is very important in terms of the source of your statement. I noticed the students, I would admit, we cannot really put it aside. And I noticed it with essays of students. When you, my exams are usually essay form, I don't give objective exams. Okay, their essay in the exam is so different from the essays they submit in reflection papers. It's so gibberish. I mean, I can look, what is so disorganized? So, doon ko na huli, itong batang ito ay nagkonsulta ng AI kasi walang sense, hindi smooth ang flow, ano-ano lang, yung dinikit-dikit ng mga. So, you know, I have minimized the use of, I mean, I gusto mo sana yung reflection paper because you get the sentiments, no? But I tell them, okay, if you're going to use AI in your reflection papers, acknowledge na lang. Acknowledge it, no? Where did you leave this idea, what journal, what book, etc. But you can see it, no? But what I notice now with students, you know, it's really when you're in the teaching profession and you see how students have evolved in themselves. before, the students can really give you what you want, no, in terms of recall. Now, I notice the students want to give their take on the information. So they're not just giving you recall. But in my mind, this is, yun doon ko nakita na, I appreciate that because I like students also to be reacting to what they are reading or to what they're saying or writing. So I notice students have that kind of quality now when you let them write essays or their papers. They give, this is what the effect of that research to me. Meron palaging to the self, no? Which I appreciate.
Responding to that question, I was a participant in an online teaching effectiveness session 2 weeks ago, done by the Singapore Management University, and there's a speaker from the Harvard University, particularly on the use of, how do we teach effectively given the range and the flooding of the AI and other technologies. And I would go similarly to the suggestion, because from that session, my takeaway there was that the teacher has to learn how to tweak and probably change the questions so that we encourage, with respecting the citation used by the AI or used by the student from the AI. Maybe another question, a follow-up question, asking about how the student interprets the point raised through the AI source and her or his own. So it's another level of, dissecting the ability to comprehend, the ability for analysis and take home by the student. This is what I got from listening to that, session. And they teach it in a very, you have to change the way we teach also. And the way we frame the questions maybe in exams. No? That's the short response to that. Having heard similarly a situation at that Singapore Management University online teaching effectiveness. Thank you.
Yeah, but if I may just add, if I can, because you also have to be worried about AI detectors because they're not 100% accurate. So it's really, it's still the human factor that has to decide on it, di ba? Because I tried putting up my own work, which of course I did not use AI. And then it said, it's AI generated at least a certain percentage. So I don't know if I sound like a computer when I write my essays or or what. But yun eh. Because AI detectors are simply patterns. They're looking at patterns which looks like or sounds like. But it doesn't really mean that this is AI. So I guess you as the teacher would also have to make your own judgment there. Like yung sinasabi kanina ni gibberish daw. Although I was telling Sir Allan kanina na baka gibberish talaga siya magsulat, and then yung smooth na nabasa niyo, yun yung actually AI. Right? Anyway, yeah.
Alright, by averaging, sir, that's how artificial intelligence works. I think we have here a question from the audience. Could you please introduce yourself first by stating your name and your institution?
Isang mapagpalang araw po sa ating lahat po. Ako po si Denver Bero from the Pamantasang Normal ng Pilipinas. At isa po sa tanong ko po ay nakabatay din po sa naging presidente po ng aming paaralan, si Bonifacio Sibayan po, kung saan nagkaroon po siya ng konsepto ng intelektualisasyon, na kung saan meron daw pong 100 taon na may kailangan tayong aksyon para gawing intelektualisado ang wikang Pilipino sa iba't ibang mga disiplina. Halos po ang naging buong diskusyon ay nasa wikang Ingles. Kung kaya nais ko po sanang tanong kung handa na ba tayo, kung masasabi na po ba natin intelektualisado ang wikang Pilipino sa mga disiplina po natin na kung saan sa pagtuturo, sa mga pag-aaral, gaya na rin sa mga pananaliksik, nasa wikang Pilipino na po ito. Para po kasi, mas nakikita ko po kasi yung mga suggestion nyo po na pakipag-usap po tayo dito sa mismong nakaranas yung mga iba't ibang karanasan, mas nakikita ko po itong mas epektibo kung gagamitin din po natin ang wikang Pilipino po. Ngunit ano po ba ang sa inyong pananaw? Maraming salamat po.
Okay, the intellectualization of Filipino. Dr. Sibayan also identified some controlling and non-controlling domains where a language such as Filipino should be used consistently for it to be intellectualized. Unfortunately, Filipino is not used in all controlling and semi-controlling domains in the Philippines. And that one of the reasons is our preferential option for English. We look at English as the language of salvation, the language of prosperity, and thus relegating Filipino to the background. So it's an ideological issue that we have been trying to resolve over the yesteryears until na wala pa konkretong sagot. But Dr. Bonifacio Sibayan, I think, identified these different domains where we should use Filipino. Sa UST, for example, there is a group of, although critical mass sila, na faculty members teaching Kimika or chemistry in Filipino. Pero iilan lang sila. And a majority of the courses, I think this is also true to all other HEIs in the country, that majority of the courses, even Rizal, is taught in English. And to me, that's preposterous. No? How would you appreciate Rizal if the language of instruction in the classroom is ang wikang Banyaga, which is English. So yun at the moment ang nakikita kong sagot. So if we use Filipino in the different controlling and non-controlling domains, which is a battle we have to win. Thank you. Sorry.
Sa UP, nung time ni President Abueva, nagtatag siya ng sentro ng wikang Filipino. At nagbigay pa ng time frame. By this time, dapat ang wikang pagturo, lahat na ng mga official communication ay nasa Filipino. So, andun pa rin yung sentro ng wikang Filipino, no? Pero, merong nag-policy ng wika na tinataguyod. Pero, ang siguro talagang medyo masigasig gumamit ng wikang Filipino ay Departamento ng Kasaysayan. Ang wikang panturo ay nasa Filipino, ang course titles namin ay nasa Filipino, no? Ewan ko kung saan nagkaroon ng problema ng pagsusulong. Palagay ko yung textbooks kasi yung textbooks nanatili pa rin nasa Ingles. Sinikap ni Siyo Salazar na gamitin yung klase niya para magsalin ng mga textbooks. So, meron kunyari ginamit silang textbooks sa world history na isinalin ng mga estudyante sa wikang Filipino. Pero syempre, pag wala nang magsusulong, namamatay, no? Yung hakbang. Pero sa kasaysayan, yung disiplina ng kasaysayan, tinataguyod pa rin, no? Nakikita ko naman na mga papel na binibigay o yung sa mga panayam ay nasa wikang Filipino. So siguro sa departamento ng kasaysayan talagang, kasi nga, nung panahon noon ay binigyan ng parang tatak na imperialist yung wikang Ingles. So, kung anti-American ka, dapat gumamit ka ng Filipino.
Yung usapin ng intellectualism, nangyari yun dun sa panahon na naniniwala pa ang mga tao sa language planning. Pero nagbabago din kasi ang tingin ng mga tao sa wika, no? Yung idea halimbawa ng wikang Filipino nagkaroon ng reaction dyan. Kasi maraming wika sa Pilipinas. No? So, yung mga historiador sa Cebu, sa Pampanga, no? Hindi Pilipino ang gusto nilang gamitin. So pag nagkakaroon ng ganong mga usapin, yung resources biglang nagiging problematic, no? Yan yung isa sa mga naging problema dun sa mother tongue-based. Kung talagang kikilalanin natin lahat ng mga wika sa Pilipinas, kahit ilimita natin sa major languages, masyadong maraming resources ang kailangan para na-develop siya. Yung ding articulation ni Dr. Sibayan, that was the time na bago mag-internet, bago mag-diaspora ng mga Pilipino, before the world was becoming more globalized. Kahit ngayon sa mother tongue-based multilingual education, yung mga parents, natuturo pa yung Filipino. No? Alam na nila yan, nasa bahay ginagamit. No? So even the way society looks at language is changing. So people have been, yung hindi pagpapatuloy, maraming dahilan kung bakit hindi siya nasusulong. No? Because people also realize it's a problematic proposition. No? Language is alive. So kahit na yung pagsulong ng pag-intellectualize ng wikang Filipino, mayroong tanong, anong klaseng Pilipino? No? Sa ngayon, if you look at Filipino as a living language, no? Pag lumabas ka dito, paglabas mo ng gate, makakakita ka ba ng tao ng purong Pilipino magsalita? Hindi. Translanguaging is a reality. No? And this is true not just in the Philippines, but in every part of the world. No? So marami tayong mga assumptions about the nature of language na hindi siguro, na yan maganda, kaya nga importante ang linguistics, di ba, Andrew? Na our assumptions need to be constantly interrogated. Na, kasi minsan, yung maganda sa policy, ang resulta pala nun, pinapatay mo yung ibang wika. No? This is, ito yung isang bagay na maganda. Tingnan natin yung experience ng mga kapitbahay natin. Indonesia is one of those few countries that had a very successful language planning policy. Buong bansa nagsasalita ng bahasa Indonesia. Pero pag kinausap mo yung mga matanda doon, ang sinishare nila, hindi nila magamit yung wika nila. Marami daw silang mga kaalaman na hindi nila, in fact sabi nila, bawal ito for a long time. Because of the government mandate to intellectualize and use bahasa in all domains, maraming indigenous languages ang namamatay. It was only in, I think, 2019 that the Indonesian government started allowing even questions about ethnic language. Kasi for so many years, bawal yun pag-usapan. So meron niyang, may cost-benefit yan, no? So maganda yung mga proyekto, pero yung reality ng mga tao, nakita natin na meron tayong magandang project, pero may nawawala. Kaya kailangan talagang pakinggan natin silang lahat sa mga policy.
Mabilis lang po. I'm a I come from a Tagalog-speaking province. I don't have a problem with Filipino, pero nabanggit na nga rin maraming klase ng Philippine languages. First thing I asked my student on day 1, do you want me to give the lecture in English or in Filipino? Preference ng learners, no? I have to consider that. But also my other concern is kahit mag-lecture ako in Filipino, pero ang readings naman natin, wala namang available na literature na nakasulat sa Filipino, that will also, parang may inconsistency eh. So sa akin, I ask my students, but I also have to consider the practicality, no, ng learning. So that's to me something that we probably have to move on. Pero ang dami pong challenges na kailangan nating harapin in the meantime. Salamat.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack in this conversation. I know that you have a lot of questions in mind, but that's all the time we have for the Q&A, for the question and answer. And as we are nearing the end of this roundtable, allow me to give back the floor to Dr. John Robert Ko for his synthesis of the discussion.
Synthesis. Okay. In Filipino. Napakahirap nito para sa akin. Sa Chinese? Pwede sa Chinese. Pero, susugan ko lang yung bago ako mag-synthesis, no? Even in China, they have that. When they implemented the national language, the local language, which they call dialect within China, they are dying down. No one is speaking it anymore. And even the younger ones would prefer to speak Mandarin than Hokkien or Cantonese. Yeah. Anyway, so we've had a very fruitful discussion this afternoon. A lot of points were raised, but I think the most interesting ones are the continuing evolution of our disciplines and the continuing evolution of the social sciences. And part of this evolution is the need for a more interdisciplinary approach. Okay, it starts with being open to the idea, but I think as we grow older as a discipline, as a social science, as a group of social sciences rather, we break the barriers, okay, and we accept the challenge of doing more interdisciplinary work, okay, and I think it starts with our own disciplines, that we must go beyond the walls of what has been taught to us, okay, but recognize that our discipline works better with other disciplines. Yeah. And this places the PSSC in a central position. Okay? Babalik tayo dun sa PSSC. Because PSSC as the leading force in the promotion of social sciences in the Philippines, should be at the forefront together with its 14 regular members and 43 associate members. Right? Okay, na-memorize ko na yung video kanina. Okay? But kidding aside, the council should be the anong tawag dun sa bangka? Siya yung timon, na magsusulong para umandar yung ganitong direksyon sa ating mga disiplina. Ayan. Okay, it was okay. But also during the open forum, we were able to raise two important questions, the use of AI and the use of language, which I think are very important as we talk about how our disciplines and the social sciences in general will eventually evolve. Okay, how much openness do we have, for the use of artificial intelligence? Okay, and facing the limitations of having a singular language to cover the studies, the research we do in our respective disciplines. And with that, okay, that's not AI, that's me, okay? Although, do I sound like AI? Okay, so thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, of course, to Professor Robert Gong. Okay, for spearheading a very productive conversation. And likewise to our panelists, Professor Alejandro Bernardo, Professor Allan Bernardo, Professor Luisa Camagay, and Professor